Good afternoon, everybody. Hope all is well and you're safe wherever you're watching this live on the replay. My name is Ed Gow Jr. I'm a member of an outstanding organization called Dad Central, and it's Canada's national fatherhood organization. And we are very happy to be back in online for another monthly chat. And as always, I can't do it without a few people, and especially one of the people I cannot do it with, well, on this kind of stuff is Drew Solon. Drew, what is up today?
It's just another Tuesday, another live virtual event.
Just another Tuesday, okay.
Yeah, just another chance for us to share just some insights, some key things that are going to help support dads or those who work with dads as they get ready for what's going to be a little bit of a different summer, but hopefully an exciting summer. So, we're happy to have the opportunity to talk about these things and to be able to provide resources and support because that's really what Dad Central is all about. So we're excited for the conversation.
And and Drew forgot to, and I forgot to, both of us are members of Dad Central Ontario. Drew is the director for Dad Central Ontario, and I'm a member of the steering committee for Dad Central Ontario. So we had to tell you that we are legit. So we got to make sure that, just jumping on, say, who are these two guys if you haven't seen us before? We are very happy to have a return guest who is great to work with, but more importantly, a great guy and a great dad, Dr. Greg Fabiano. Greg, how we doing today?
Great. Thanks very much for the opportunity to be here and talk about a really neat topic.
Excellent. Excellent. Now, for those people who are watching live, you can put your questions and comments in the chat section. We appreciate you doing that, and we can't do it without you. So today's conversation topic is Super Dad Summer, how to create lasting bonds with your kids. Now, we know it's been a different school year and a different year period in everyone's life, especially for fathers and their children. And we know that the kids have been off school for a few months, but we would like to acknowledge the work that every parent has done to support learning at home. Again, a challenging time, but we know that parents are doing the best they can, especially our dads, in this situation. So we want to focus on validating how important connection and relationship is to supporting kids as they prepare to return to school at the end of the summer and re-engage in the formal learning environment. So Greg, let's spend a few moments in regards to that. It has been a different school year. It's going to be a different summer, but we know our fathers and parents are doing great jobs. What words would you like to share in this opening conversation?
Well, I think one thing is that we have a terrific opportunity now to look ahead and forward to all the things that we really enjoy doing as parents. There's going to be, the sun is out. There's a wide variety of activities that we can think of that we're going to be sharing together with our kids that we can enjoy observing them do, but also participate in. And I really think that many of the parents I talk to are really excited about the prospect of broadening the range of things that they can do with their children now that they can be outside more often, now that the focus isn't just solely on academics during the day, but can be also focused on some of the other things we know are really important for kids as they're growing up. Their emotional development, their social development, their development of competencies in areas like sports or arts or crafts or learning about just things that the topics they're interested in.
Nice start to our conversation. And either yourself or in a communication with a parent or a father, did anyone share a success story over this period of time that you'd like to share with our audience?
I was actually on the phone the other day with a parent who was working from home and telecommuting and shared the observation that unlike the hubbub of everyday life before being in the telecommute situation, this dad hadn't had an opportunity to really take time to notice and appreciate the little things that happen every day. He had a toddler who he had started to take out on walks around the block, and that hadn't been something that they had been able to fit into their schedule earlier. And he was amazed at how many times his toddler liked to stop to look at an ant that was crawling across the sidewalk or pick up an acorn and marvel about that. And I think that for the really young children, it's a reminder that the world is new to them. And sometimes in the hubbub and the busyness of everyday life, we forget about the speed they're going at. And this has been a good time to kind of course correct and remember that that's something that we can, as dads, really facilitate and support so that the children grow and learn and develop into the young people we want them to. And then it was a couple of weeks ago, but talking with a other parent, this was of an older child, they appreciated having the opportunity to take breaks during the day and do activities of the child's choice, throw a ball around, just talk, share a meal together, like lunch, which wasn't something that they were able to do. And so I think we can build off that as we look forward to the summer about how can we integrate these everyday positive attachment activities into what dads do with their children so we continue to foster and develop really good relationships.
Excellent. I'm going to pull Drew in just for a second because Drew is a father of 3. So, and I know that Drew at the best of times has his hands full, even before this time in our history. Drew, what sort of things have been amplified, brought to your more awareness in a positive light, being a father during this time?
Well, it's interesting hearing Greg's stories. While that dad was able to recognize, slowing down was good, I've found actually myself pulled in many different directions. And so I've had to be much more, I'd say, intentional to notice that I need to invest in that time, because working from home has a little bit of new challenges, and the computer and then the kids interrupting, and so you tend to very easily try and navigate that. And so I think I've had to notice that I'm actually getting pulled a lot by my electronics, my devices, my screens, and disengage from them a lot more than I would have normally had to in my working day. And so that's been a really interesting observation for me, is that I need to do that. And 2, the difference it makes when I can just shift my attention and focus on my kids more, that it really, they are different as a result, right? 15-minute breaks here. I think Greg had mentioned way back in April, maybe 10 o'clock is your set time to go and have a little dance party with the kids. Well, I haven't necessarily done that, but I have taken 10, 15-minute breaks to either go for a walk with them or just go push them on the swings, do some of those things. So the positive thing for me is I'm recognizing much more of where I am mentally in the moment and being present or not present, and then being able to make some conscious choices on when I'm going to engage and how I'm going to engage, or at least building the right structure at home. Whereas before home, you weren't probably as structured. It was home was relaxed, take it easy. So getting an awareness and understanding of how I can actually manage my home schedule, my presence at home, I think is now an added strength that I have, but also it allows me to engage with my kids more in the moments, as opposed to like I've got to have this big block of time. I can take 2 minutes, I can take 10 minutes, I can take 20 minutes, and I can maximize that time now a little bit better. And I can see the results of being able to connect with them better in those things. So, a little bit of an awareness thing, but also now I can make conscious choices and shift how I'm doing it in those moments. Whereas before it would have been harder for me to make those switches.
Excellent. Thank you so much. We're coming up in the summertime, and Greg, we always talk every conversation about the importance of play and creating attachment during play. Again, with it being a different time, the few months before summer, now it's playtime. It's more playtime for the young ones, or whatever age they're at, because the weather is better. What are your thoughts in regards to creating attachment through play to our fathers?
I think it's really important to acknowledge that fathers make unique contributions that are positive in child development. So research shows that dads use more complex language when they interact with their young children and preschool age children. They use more unfamiliar words in the conversations with children, and that's a strong predictor of the development of the child's own vocabulary and language. We know that dads make unique contributions to children's peer relationships by the way they play with kids. Some of the rough and tumble play that dads do, or games like hide and go seek or sports, those become the foundational building blocks for kids to understand what the limits are in social interactions with others. And then they can generalize that to their neighborhood playgrounds or their school gymnasiums when they go back to them and they're around other kids. We also know that for older kids, fathers make a unique contribution to their children's academic achievement by how they emphasize what kids, about how they emphasize the importance of academics and learning. And so based on those kind of guiding principles, we can think about play as the venue through which dads incorporate lots of really important interactions for kids in their positive long-term development and outcomes. And so when we talk about, yeah, we're playing with kids, it's really much more than that, because there's a whole lot of complex interactions that are happening in those engagements that are critical for well-child development.
Would you say that children learn as much in the play as they do in like a formal classroom?
So when I think about what kids learn, you learn the ABCs and 1, 2, 3s in school. But in the long run, when we think about healthy child development that leads to being a well-functioning adult, our social and emotional and behavioral strengths are really what carry the day. And so if you don't have this positive parent-child interaction going on really throughout development, you could have a child who'd be a whiz at the academics, but would be missing lots of the key ingredients that we think about for someone who grows up to do a good job in lots of different sectors and lots of different jobs. So yes, I would think, I'll take the bait with your comment there, Ed. Yes, I agree that these things are critical.
Absolutely. And for our audience that's watching live or on a replay, I'm just going to put a question out there and you can respond in real time if you want, or on the replay. We have a question for you in regards to what are some of the activities that you can do with your child to help them strengthen the bond that you have. So Drew's going to be putting that in the chat during the live conversation here, and you can also respond on wherever you're watching this live and whenever. Greg, with the play aspect, can you give some helpful hints to our fathers on how to play right, good play? What sort of things can they do to make it good and valuable learned experience play-wise?
I would start with something Drew mentioned, which is really critical. It's to be present, right? Put down the laptop or the phone, put down the newspaper, and be there 100% with your child. I think that's point number one. Once you are providing your undivided attention, I would remember that play is supposed to be child-directed. So there aren't a whole lot of wrong answers when you're playing with your child. And this isn't the place where you want to have a lot of commands, demands, reprimands. You don't want to be using the words no, don't, stop, or quit when you're playing with your child, because that makes it not fun, right? Nobody wants to be playing with somebody who's telling them the whole time how to do it, or whatever the way they're doing it is wrong. Rather, you want to focus on catching the child being good, label the things that you like that they're doing or that you're enjoying in your interaction with them, find their skills and talents that they're illustrating during the play that you can comment positively on. It's a great place to insert a compliment and to note what you really value about your child. And if you are talking to the child, focus on more play-by-play narrative, like, oh, it looks like you're going to make this tower even taller with that next block, rather than things like, why are you going to put the block there? Because that's demanding, right? For a little brain, now they have to think about, oh, I wasn't really planning this, I was just playing. Now I got to come up with an answer, and that makes it less fun. So as a parent, be present, focus on the positives, catch them being good, eliminate the negatives, the commands, demands, reprimands. And as you're interacting with the child, keep some sort of running commentary, because again, that's where the language is being used throughout to help that child start to learn to apply some of these words and vocabulary related skills in their own development.
Excellent, that is good stuff. And just taking a look, I'm seeing some people saying some of the activities. A gentleman here is saying chop wood or any sort of life skill or trade, which is good. Another person here saying dance, and there's some other stuff going on, but we're just jumping in and jumping back to Greg to drop his knowledge bombs, as I like to say, when it comes to raising young children. So Greg, another thing we want to chat about today, have you share about, is investing in the father effect to help our kids develop. So before we get really deep into it, if you can, for our audience, what do you mean by the father effect?
So to some degree, fathers provide unique contributions, like I mentioned before, across lots of different aspects of child development. So we all should agree, and on this call, I'm sure that that's the case, that the role of fathers is very important. It should be highly valued, and it is something that we should make sure to facilitate, really for any child that we care about and that we're working with. And when I talk about fathers, I paint with a broad brush. That could be a grandfather, it could be an uncle, it could be a neighbor, it could be really anybody that serves in the paternal role for the child that facilitates a positive relationship that they can look up to. And I think we also have to think about the father effect across development. So the role of the father is going to vary depending on if we're thinking about a newborn, a toddler, a grade school age child, a teenager, or even a young adult. And the importance of different father effects change based on the developmental level that we're thinking about, right? It's going to be very heavily caretaking in terms of an infant or a toddler. When we talk about a teenager or young adult, it means being available for when the individual adolescent or young adult needs help, that person can be there to provide support or reassurance or help, depending on what is needed. And then we also shouldn't ignore the obvious, that fathers work within a system of other people that are in the child's life, a co-parent, a teacher, a mentor, coaches. And so fathers have to figure out the best way to integrate their own expertise and support within the existing networks that already exist.
Okay, you mentioned an interesting point there, the whole importance of the co-parenting, not only during this time, but at all times. What are your thoughts in regards to the co-parenting and also applying it to the upcoming summer for young children or youth?
Ed and Greg, can I hop in there just one
Yeah,
second
absolutely.
before we move on to that next one?
Yeah.
What I wanted to do is share just a brief story about the power, I think, of the father effect and all the points that Greg mentioned. And we've all probably have our own different experiences with our own fathers as well, or not, depending on your background. But this comes from watching a show, and this was a 55-year-old man who runs a successful business and was, just sort of in the flow of what he was doing. But it was interesting to see this moment where he started to talk about his dad and how his dad wasn't necessarily there. His dad's in his life now, but the level of emotion that came out that he couldn't actually get across because of, the loss of his father not being there when he was younger and how much it meant to him, was really, I think, a powerful example of the father effect, right? Whether it's positive or the not being there. And so I think we have a tremendous opportunity as dads to, in those moments, as Greg was saying, being present, is that can have the positive side of that. It can give our kids something that says, wow, I'm cared for, I matter to somebody. And anyways, I just thought that was a really powerful example of that father effect, from somebody who is, highly successful. From the outside, you wouldn't think of anything, but he couldn't actually get his words out because of the impact that had on him growing up. So just wanted to share that story to add to Greg's point. Go ahead.
Sorry for the technical glitch there, but we are back with you. In regards to that, and great story, Drew, and I think the father effect, like I have, my natural father is still alive, but there are other fathers that I have in my life too. So I think that in the times that we are living in, because I know someone may come up with a comment saying, well, what happens if I don't have a father? So Greg, and I don't know if you want to address about what about the young child that doesn't have a father? What's the best, how can I put, best actions or best road for that child that doesn't have a father to get that father effect?
That's a great question. And to some degree, every family is going to have to play the hand they're dealt, right? Families have different structures. There's different stressors that families are dealing with. There's different strengths that families have. And so it probably is not going to matter in as much of the specific structure of the family as the supports and resources and care that are invested in that particular child by that family. So there may be a situation where a family doesn't have an identified biological father, but a step parent, a counselor from school, a coach, someone else can serve in a similar role to the ones we're talking about, right? Being present with the child or teen when they're there, catching and being good and noticing their strengths and valuing them as a human being, making sure not to quibble about little negatives, and being available. When that person reaches out, they have somebody that they know that they can go to. There's a lighthouse for them that they can use as a beacon if they're distressed or there's a problem. And just that availability turns out to be useful and important for kids, even if it's not accessed routinely.
I like the word you use, lighthouse. It's a very good analogy. I really, really like that there's some light somewhere at the end of the tunnel for in this kind of situation. So creating that lighthouse effect. I may have to steal that from you, Greg. You don't mind?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, no problem. Let's look at what kind of activities or suggestions you would suggest for our fathers or parents in regards to summertime activities that they can do with their children that they may not have thought of before.
Well, the absolute best resource for finding out what are the good activities to do with the child is the child, him or herself. They will readily tell you things that they would like to do. And sometimes they're even easier than the elaborate schemes that we dream up as parents that we think we need to do to occupy the child. A simple game like getting a deck of playing cards and throwing them in a hat might be something you can do at a kitchen table or living room anywhere, and it would entertain some children for hours. Other kids are just happy with a walk or a game outdoors. The strategy a parent just told me about that is a helpful one. They sat down with their child one time after dinner and they brainstormed all the fun things that they could possibly do during the summer. Some were day trips or things that would take some pre-planning. Some were things that they could do at the drop of a hat. They could throw a Frisbee around outside anytime. And they wrote these all on little slips of paper. And I liked the parent had the child write them down. So the child really had some ownership over the things that they were choosing to do. They put them all in the hat. And then each day when the father's going to do something with the child, said, well, rather than sit around trying to guess what we're going to do, let's pick something out of the hat. And what that said is what they decided to do. And it became a fun, actually the picking of the activity was a fun parent-child interaction in its own right. And then they got to do something really enjoyable right after that.
All right. Just want to highlight Darren in the chat talking about patience. And when we're chatting about play, summer activities, how important is it for that father to have patience and create an environment of patience?
So when I think about working with children, there are some high stakes situations, right? Getting homework done, getting ready for school to catch the bus or be on time, maybe managing chores. When we're playing with our children during the summer, in terms of the urgency of doing it the right way or getting it done on time, the stakes couldn't be lower, right? That's not our goal when we're sharing these enjoyable times with our children. The goal is to develop a secure attachment that's going to last for a lifetime. And you don't do that by no, don't, stop, or quit, commands, demands, reprimands. You do that by being present. And as the adult, remind yourself, I really like the comment by Darren, you have to remind yourself, This is a time where I have to be patient. This is a time where my goal is to interact with my child in a positive way. Whether we get this done in 5 minutes or 10 minutes or 20 minutes, doesn't matter. What matters is that when we tie this situation up, my child and I both walk away thinking that was fun. I want to do that again. And if you remind yourself about that, it becomes easier to not sweat the small stuff and kind of choose your battles and move forward with a more positive interaction.
And it's nice. So patience is important. I guess I'll go down this road. What are the potential harmful effects if we don't provide the environment of patience, or the father doesn't provide their environment of patience and they're not patient? Because sometimes they may not realize that.
Well, let's be honest. I'm a father myself.
Okay.
I'm impatient a lot of the time, right? I have things that I want to get done. I have things I've requested of my children to do and they don't do them. I get impatient. I repeat probably at a louder tone of voice what I just asked them to do. There's a role for that, right? That's part of how children become socialized, to learn that someday they're going to have a boss that's going to ask them to do things, or they're going to go to college and they're going to have a professor that's going to ask them to do things. They're going to have obligations they have to meet. But during this playtime, it's a shift in our thinking, right? That's not the time where I have to get something done in this particular way in a particular timeline. And I think that's really the discipline, right? That's hard for us as adults to shift our cognitive set from get things done, produce, be productive, to here, I just want to create this positive attachment in the context of this activity we're doing right now. And so probably includes a little pre-planning on the part of the parent, right? To think, okay, my dad role is not to get things done here. My dad role is to have this positive interaction, develop a really secure attachment that's going to last for a lifetime. And if I remind myself about that, it's easier for me to downshift into the role I'm supposed to be in when I have this parent-child interaction in the context of play.
Excellent. Drew, you wanted to jump in here, so please come on in.
Thanks, Ed. I wanted to, I think, briefly touch on Greg's previous points, just in terms of child-led, absolutely. But I know that I sometimes find my patience isn't where it needs to be if I'm always going on the child-led activities. And I think, how can I do something that I enjoy, but they enjoy too? And so I only wanted to comment there in terms of it. I absolutely 100% agree with the child-led, but sometimes I've been able to bridge the gap and do a little bit of both, and be a little bit productive as well. So as an example, yesterday, my kids wanted a ride in the wagon. No problem. Love giving them a ride in the wagon. But I thought, how can we spice this up, make it a little more fun? I have an uphill driveway and it's pretty long. And I thought, I haven't had any exercise in a while. Why don't I do something? Put your helmets on, kids. In the wagon, I'm going to be pushing you. So I literally took them, pushed them up the driveway, kind of running, keeping them somewhat safe. And literally they were like, Daddy, you got to do that again. I'm like, you sure? They're like, yeah. So it became a great workout, a great fun time for me. My wife was like, what are you doing? I said, I'm having play with my kids. And literally the smiles on their faces, the laughter that they were having, the fun that I was having, and the sweat that I was getting from pushing them all the way up this driveway was a ton of fun. And it's so much so, it was only with two of my kids. The third one was out with my wife at the time. This morning, my daughter says, Daddy, can you do what you did with Jada and Jordan yesterday? Can you do? And so those create these moments where I'm kind of being silly, but I'm also building some of the things that do matter to me into the play. And I find those to be really fun and exciting for me and for them. And it becomes something that's memorable that I can do. So, no real creativity there other than just what can we do together?
So Greg, and what's really nice too is, Drew, thank you for giving your learned and real-time experience on what's going on in the Sullen household. I don't know if it's going to make a reality show one day, but it sounds like it could,
I do have the videos, but I won't share those.
Okay. No, well, at least between you and I. Okay.
Sure, we can do that.
Okay, all right. So, Greg, there's a question from our audience, and I think it's a very important one. What are your thoughts on rough play?
That's a great question. There's actually been a lot of research in what's called rough and tumble play. So this is the kind of, maybe wrestling around a little bit, might be, sprinting around the yard, playing tag. It could include some tumbling. But one of the roles of rough and tumble play that what the scientists have found is really important about, and it's something that's unique amongst dads, that fathers are who do this, is that there's implicit limits in the rough and tumble play. So it doesn't get to aggression, right? It's not pushing or shoving to hurt somebody. If a child does that, that is a place where the father gives feedback. That's too rough, or we need to take a break, or we have to stop here. And it turns out that is a very important learning opportunity, especially for the toddlers and the 4 and 5-year-olds that we might be thinking about. Because then when they go to their peers and interact with them, they've already learned where the limits are within play. So they can observe it and know that one of their peers is already going too far because their father has given them feedback about that. But they also know that it's okay to pal around a little bit, or to, play tag, or to chase somebody that has a ball, because their fathers have modeled that for them as well. And so when I say rough and tumble play, I'm not talking about aggression, and I'm not talking about anything that can hurt other kids, but I'm talking about a level of play that's more physical and active than maybe just sitting playing a card game or a board game or something like that. Does that make sense as a distinction to make?
Yeah, that's good. That's solid stuff. As we continue to just focus on the playing and playtime in summer, also the impact of making those playtimes count to where it becomes lasting memories. Can you just give some thought on that in regards to taking the play to the next level where it's a lasting memory for dad and the child or children?
Did you want to go first, Drew, or do you want? Yeah, I'll throw it in. So one of the things that I have found is stretching my kids a little bit through our experiences, which is maybe someone is stretching me too, and giving them some challenge. And I'll tell a brief story, and then I think it should highlight it well. So when our daughters were 3.5, 4-ish, and our son was maybe just 1, we decided to take them on a little bit of a hike. We weren't quite sure, and it was a pretty long one. We weren't quite sure how they were going to do or what was going to go on. My daughter also had some physical limitations at the time. She was diagnosed with juvenile arthritis, and so we wondered, she was just complaining about her feet hurting a lot. Anyways, we did this hike, for the first, I don't know, maybe kilometer. Wasn't too bad, pretty flat. And we were watching, making sure what's going to happen here, what's going to, and she basically, at the second part of this hike, it got much more technical. Roots, rocks, up and down hills. And what amazed me was the transformation in both daughters, but in particular, the daughter who had, we thought, this physical limitation. She became a different child. She was engaged in it. She was excited. She was pushing herself. And I was like, wow. I mean, it was a remarkable, eye-opening experience for us. And so it was a hard hike. We did make it all the way up. We took lots of time, lots of break, lots of snacks, all the things we knew we needed to do. And anyways, long story short, we have now been back to that hike many times in the years since, because they request it. They remember the hike. They remember the place it's called. And every now and then we talk about it, they say, yeah, can we go back to that? So she was challenged, and we a little bit, but they rose to that challenge and really enjoyed it. And so I have found that when we've done experiences where they're pushed outside of their comfort zone a little bit, they're uncertain, maybe within safety, within all those other things, but they tend to gravitate towards those. They say, hey, can we go back and do this? They've experienced something new. And so that's something that we've observed. And that story was, I think, the starting point for us to realize when we're able to do some of those types of things, it engages and builds a lot of those bonding times and those great memories.
Greg, do you want to go first? Because I want to add on to that. But Greg, if you want to add on to that,
go ahead, Ed.
Please go ahead. Go ahead. No, you're good?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
Okay, so I agree, Drew, that when play is really good, you get to know where your kids are at and where they need to go. And you want, as much as possible, let them set the goal. let them set the goal. And if they reach it, great. If not, provide the encouragement, say, hey, you did a really good job. Next time, do you want to try that? So Drew, for me, hearing that your daughter said, like, your kids are saying, we want to do it again, brought a great learning experience and lasting memory, because obviously they remember they want to do it again. It's something that they enjoyed. It's something they hadn't tried before, but they want to do it again. And two, it's the environment of the family. So the whole family did it. So it was a success shared by mom, dad, and each one of the kids. And I feel those sort of lasting memories can go really far.
Absolutely.
Greg, do you want to add on to that?
Yeah, I was just going to say, when people reflect back on their childhood and their relationships with people that were important to them, they really think about two things, right? They have these really salient, vivid memories of something that they did that was really fun or really unique or really cool. But then there's also kind of just a vague sense of peacefulness and sentimentality about the ongoing good relationship that you had with that particular individual, right? It's hard to put your finger on any particular one time, but that was somebody you could count on, and that somebody that was somebody that cared about you as you were growing up. And I think that's really what you're saying in these stories, right? You want to have fun activities and do things that really make a mark with kids, but you're doing it not only one time, but on an ongoing basis over and over again. Days turn into weeks, turn into months, to create that bond that you hope is lifelong.
And another thing I'll just add on to that, not only good for them to remember the memory, but if you can document it with a picture, I think that is good, because when you can document the picture, it's something that's a special moment. That moment when you completed it as a family the first time, and each one of those kids completed for the first time, that's never going to happen again. The next time you do it, it wasn't the first time. So it's a documentation is great. And I'm not saying to everyone to take selfies of their kids all over the place, but I'm just saying there are definitely special moments if you're able to document them. It's very important, not only for dads and the co-parents, but also for the kids. It's a memory that they can look back on. So I think it's a really important point. Greg, also let's talk about emphasizing our kids' feelings and engaging with them on a consistent basis throughout the summer.
So if we take a long-term view, right, the whole summer, there might be things fathers have as a goal that they want to achieve with their kids. Maybe I want my child to be able to catch a baseball, or I want them to be able to paint a picture in a certain way, or I might want them to be able to pick up an instrument. And if we put ourselves in the kids' shoes, when they're doing something new, right? As adults, we've tried these things 100, 1,000, 10,000, 100,000 times. We know how to do these things, right? But for kids, a lot of these things are brand new. And I think there's an impulse that adults have that when they see something not going right, in the moment they want to correct it, right? That's not how you catch a ball. That's not, you have to paint in the lines. You're not holding that musical instrument the right way. And unfortunately, that has a dampening effect on kids. Once they start getting corrected, actually has a dampening effect on adults too, right? None of us like to be corrected when we're trying to do something or learn a new skill. And it shuts down the possibility that kids can develop and grow. So we want to be thoughtful about that emotion. We don't want to be making them feel like they're failing or doing wrong. But it doesn't mean that we can't, as fathers, be doing good formative assessments, thinking, okay, now that I've seen my child in action here, I know that this is a skill they need to work on. And if you embed that activity into multiple days, you can naturally work on or develop the child's growth in that area without them feeling like they're being criticized, right? You can pick opportunities. Give you an example of my own daughter who loves soccer. It's her favorite thing. It's what she chooses to do every second of the day if she could. And in games during throw-ins, she was standing still. She wasn't moving to get open. And her coach was telling her she needed to do that. Other players were telling her to need to do that, but she just wasn't getting it in the moment. We were in the yard paling around with a soccer ball. I had her do throw-ins to me, and I modeled what these people were telling her to do, kind of move with that before the person throws the ball to run yourself open. and then had her try it. And she was able to figure that out. And a small skill, but one that was really important that she was getting some negative feedback on during the games, that you can kind of embed into these everyday activities in a way that helps your child grow, but without them feeling like they're not doing things the right way and therefore shutting down and not trying.
Yeah, it's great. One of the things I say to a lot of the fathers I mentor, especially when they have younger children, is one of the best ways to find out about someone, and I think even adults, give them freedom. Give them freedom and you'll find out about them. So that's a practice that it seems a lot of fathers have said, hey, you're talking right there. Greg, I have another question for you. We've got here. Do you think it is a good idea to the fathers to take their kids sometimes to places like moles, fishing, and soccer fields? Oh, you just talked about soccer.
Yeah, again, I would, for play, I would follow the child's interests more than the parent's interest, right? Because if it's my interest as the parent and it's not the child's interest, then that's work for the child, right? It's not something that they're initiating on their own that they want to do. There's plenty of times during a day for my interests to take priority, right? When we're focusing on play during the summer, I think we really want to be thoughtful about the child's perspective here and follow what they're interested in doing during that time. Because again, 90% of the day is what my interests are, right? Get your room clean, do your chores, do your summer reading, those kinds of things. Here in play, we're going to follow their interest. And if so, they want to play sports, if they want to visit the pet store, if they want to go to a park, if they want to just walk around and enjoy the sunshine and enjoy nature on a hike or a walk around the neighborhood, that's okay. It really could be anything.
Interesting. Just an interesting conversation piece came in my head, and I hope you're open to on this one. Compare summers when you were a kid to the summers that your kids are having now, because there's a lot, like, it's totally different. But just from your own perspective, and maybe Drew may want to get onto this, how are summers different for your children compared to when you were their age?
I can tell you that one silver lining that I see with the recent quarantining that's happened and the shutdown of structured events and activities is that when I drive around in my neighborhood or take walks, I see a lot more parents in the street with a hockey stick and a net set up in the street that they have to keep moving away when a car drives down. I see families walking together or bike riding together. And that reminds me more of, I'm old. That reminds me more of the
Hey, no, Greg, age ain't nothing but a number. Go on now.
Okay, thank you. That reminds me a lot more of the summers when I was growing up, where the pace was a little slower and the activities were more family-centered and child-centered. And what's happened in current generations is a little more structure and organization with outside activities and teams and events and after-school programs and all that. And so I'm kind of heartened to see that families have an opportunity to really enjoy one another in a real authentic way currently. And as I look forward to the summer, I hope that continues, and it should, because it's fun, right? As families do more of this and learn that it's really just enjoyable to be around my children and interact in this way, they should do it more often, which should develop stronger, more healthy, more emotionally well-adjusted children.
Excellent. We have from the chat room here asking, can you comment on a balance between letting them choose and developmental appropriateness? For example, if your child just wants to choose to watch television mostly. Good question.
That is a great question. I personally would put television watching or the majority of video game playing not in the category of father-child play. That's really an independent activity that the kid can choose to do when they need some downtime or they need to disconnect. Parents do that too when they're trying to relax. You could think about a family movie night might be a fun, pleasant activity that you schedule together. All the kids can bring their blankets onto the floor and camp out and watch a movie together. You can think about some video games being a shared activity between a father and a child. But just the everyday screen time, I would say that that's fine. it's probably not what we're talking about when we're talking about developing and fostering this positive father-child relationship. And it's going to be the more active activities where there's a chance for social engagement that are going to be really important, if that makes sense.
Interesting you mentioned about movie time, because of course during this time most of us are doing the Netflix thing inside and all that, but I just thought of an interesting idea. I'm a creative. If you can, go to a drive-in if there's one near you. That is a cool outdoor experience that I'm sure especially the children go, what's this? Like,
right.
Movie up there? I'm used to the movie on my 55-inch screen, not on this big thing in the middle of a field here, right?
It's a great idea.
Excellent, excellent. And we were getting to it a little bit, but I also want to come back to it in regards to the co-parenting and the importance of co-parenting all year round, but especially during the summer. If you can give, I think you didn't get down deep enough for yourself in regards to that, but if you just spend some time on the co-parenting aspects with summertime.
Sure. What we know from research evidence is that co-parenting is critical, right? If parents are not on the same page, actually neither parent wants the other parent to be more involved because they're going to muck up whatever system or approach they have. So the co-parents have to have some basic agreement on their values as parents. That doesn't mean that each parent is parenting in exactly the same way. That would actually be not typical. Moms and dads and other people with caregiving and parental roles have differences in the way they parent, but the best co-parenting relationships agree on the basics, right? Where are the limits that we're going to set? What are the goals that we have as parents or caregivers for our child? And we will talk to one another when there's disagreements. We're not going to put the pressure on the child to be in the middle and include them in those sorts of adult conversations, right? That really they should be at the adult level, not the child level.
Okay.
If that's established, then co-parents can really help one another out. So one thing co-parents can do is enjoy parenting the child together, right? There could be family-focused activities that are done. There are also, we did a program a while ago where we were running sports little leagues and the fathers and the child came together to play in a soccer game. And on our feedback at the end of the program, the people that were most satisfied with our program weren't the fathers or the child, it was the mothers. They said, wow, this was one time during the week where I had a chance to have 2 hours where I didn't have a child tugging at me, yelling at me, telling me to do something, or the child's father wasn't doing that either. I got them out of the house, they were doing something fun that they enjoyed, and I had some respite during that time. So co-parenting could also involve a little bit of shared responsibility where you're really being attentive to the other caregiver and making sure that they have a chance to recharge their batteries because you're doing a one-on-one activity with a child, or you're taking, like Drew's example of taking the kids out onto the driveway and pushing that wagon over and over again, gives the other person a chance to relax, which doesn't often happen. Everybody that's a parent on this call knows that.
Excellent. And I think what Greg is sharing is not only applicable to co-parenting, but if you have a partner. So it's applicable right across the board. Just wanted to get into some more other things. And here's a question for our audience. I want to share. What is the one area you'd like to focus on your child to improve? And you will make sure to notice, compliment, and reinforce each time you see that improvement. So just putting a little call to action or question out there to the audience. What's that one area you'd like to see your child or children amplify during the summer? As we're starting to wind down the conversation, Greg, I brought it up before we went live. This weekend is Father's Day. And it's supposedly Dad's Day. So what message would you have for our fathers out there as we're coming to another Father's Day?
Well, I would say if there are fathers that have a goal to share more positive child-directed time together with their children, what a great day to start, right? If this was, and you could have this conversation with a child today. You could say, Sunday is Father's Day. I really want to spend it with you, my family. What would be a fun thing we could do together as a shared activity? And that's really how I would want to spend my time. There's We know that there's no sports on, so that's not an excuse.
That's a gone. Yeah, no, you can't watch. Well, unless there's racing, Indy style racing,
Right.
NASCAR.
Other than that, there's really no excuse not to spend some positive time with a child this Sunday. And this might be a good place to really do that task of saying to myself, my interactions with my child vary based on my goals. My goals in these shared activities are to develop a positive bond and a positive relationship. We're going to do something fun, and I'm going to work really hard to catch my child being good, to make sure I'm present, and to get rid of all the negatives that might come up, and just invest in a positive interaction today, and then continue that investment going on. Everybody that knows about compounding interest knows that the more principal that you put down, the greater your returns later. And so the more of these shared positive activities that you can have, we know from research studies that that's going to accrue incredible gains over time.
Okay. And we have a comment here in the chat room asking for what they want in an appropriate way would be mine. That the 10 to us phrases like, I wish I could have. Interesting. I will throw in this, and I put an asterisk beside it because it may not work in all situations. But if you have a good relationship with your child or your children, ask them on Father's Day, what do you like or love about Daddy?
They'll be honest.
Yeah, well, exactly. And that will give Dad a gauge, right? Because I think I had it when I was growing up, but I wonder how many fathers ask their children, what do you like most about me? Simple as that. We have a comment here. As a father of 3 teenage girls, it is positive communication, talking as opposed to sending me a text. Great thing. Really, really great thing. One of my business mentors a long time ago said, if it's facts, send a text. If it involves emotion, you either call me or we speak face to face.
What great advice.
And I think that not only for our children, but for us as grown-up people, I don't say adults, grown-up people, I think it's a good suggestion. Drew, you've been watching intently. Anything you're wanting to add to our conversation? You're smiling, so I know you got something to say.
Actually, I don't. I don't have too much to say. Other than I really do appreciate that in some of the the conversations I'm having with dads that they've asked a question like this. So I like your question, Ed, but they've also said, what's one thing I could do to be a better dad to you? And that takes a little bit of courage to ask because, as you said, they will be very honest. But in terms of if there was anything you wanted to focus on, asking from them is a great, I think, a great way to do it. One of the dads in the group that I met with, he had asked it, months and months ago, and she had given him a very honest answer that he was like, it was hard for him to hear, but he's then made a lot of concerted effort to move towards that. And recently he kind of asked a similar question, or asked the question more about, what changes have you noticed now? And they spoke directly to the things that she had previously spoken to. And so that father's choice was to make the change based on what the child said. Hey, if you could do this, Daddy, it would make you a better dad. Again, they may not have an answer, they may not have anything to say, but it's another way to ask the question and be able to say, what can I focus on?
I think that's great, Drew, and rephrasing it in that way, because you want also, and as Greg has mentioned, child-driven. So you're almost like you're working together, and you can ask that question periodically when you're aiming for that target of what the child is asking for, and you can just check in with them, and they see that you're making the effort, and they appreciate you making the effort. So I think it's a really valuable at what you're saying and what you're sharing. So as we're winding down, we're getting close to the top of the hour. Greg, and any final comments you'd like to share with us in regards to dads, summer, children, play? You've been great as always. I know you can give some more.
So I would view this summer as an incredible opportunity to work to develop the particular goals you might have for your child. That might, and you could use the summer activities as the venue for doing that. I really like the ideas that have come up in today's conversation of being child-centered related to that. And I would never say that we should be 100% child-centered, right? Because part of what's important is that adults make a lot of the hard decisions for children, and healthy child development usually includes alleviating children of any of those responsibilities to decide what time I need to go to bed or where I need to go or whether I should go to school or not, right? We make those decisions for children. But when we're talking about play during the summer, we're really talking about allowing the child to lead there, and we're following their lead and then using their initial motivation or engagement to draw out more of the communication we hope for, more of the skill development we hope for, and more of the father-child bond that we're aiming to achieve.
Excellent. Well, Greg, as always, I'd like to thank you for your time and your work, not only in this area of fatherhood, but your work. Now, I don't think it's a passion of being a father and a parent. And I'd just like myself and Drew, I know all the audience, to say thank you for the time you take from your positive, productive schedule to share with us on these conversations.
Thank you for the opportunity to talk about a really great topic.
Excellent. And if people would like to get in contact with you, how can they do that?
I can type my email into the chat. It's gfabiano@fiu.edu.
Okay. Excellent. If you can do that, that'd be great. Now, for everyone, don't just leave yet. We got a special offer for someone who's watching this. With Father's Day right around the corner, we're going to be doing a giveaway for one lucky dad to win personal care products from our co-sponsor, Dove Men Care. The gift basket is valued up to $50. To enter, complete the post-event survey here. And I'm actually going to put it out on the chat here so everyone can see. So there are the details right there of the survey. The link is right there. So that is a little giveaway we're doing, and you need to complete the survey before 2 p.m. Eastern time this Friday. So that's 2 p.m. Eastern time before January 19th, Friday. We'll have a draw shortly after that and contact the winner for shipping information. Drew, come back in. You and I are gonna put a bow on this, as always. Great job. What would you like to share with our audience before we let them go and get ready to enjoy Father's Day?
All I'd like to say is, again, thank you very much to everyone for tuning in live. You can access, if you registered but weren't able to watch live, there will be a replay. It'll be sent out. We want to make sure that this gets to as many people as possible, that dads know that they have a resource, that they're not alone in this sort of journey, and that this summer can be a great opportunity to build some fantastic bonds with their kids and also some great memories, both for them and their kids. It doesn't have to be a challenge or drag, as some of you might be fearing. And check out some of the resources at dadcentral.ca. There's a variety of different booklets, other tips, things that we've got available for you. We're also going to be continuing these live events. We've got a lineup plan pretty much every month moving forward now to the end of the year. So we do our best to put those out, give you some examples. But the whole point of the survey is to find topics that really do interest and matter to you. And so please use the opportunity to fill in the survey to give us some feedback or possible topic ideas if we're either going to hit them because of what we're planning, or we can maybe make some adjustments because there's that much of interest. So please do fill out the survey and give us some of that feedback. It'd be really valuable for us. And of course, just want to say thank you to Dove Men Care, our sponsor, for continuing to support these live events and creating these resources for dads so that they can be as successful as possible in fulfilling their role as dads and taking care of themselves. So other than that, thank you very much, Ed, for your amazing hosting, continuing to lead us through these conversations, bringing great questions, engaging the audience, and really just been a pleasure all the way through. So thank you.
Right back at you, and just like to wish everyone, again, watching live on the replay, enjoy summer, enjoy your kids, enjoy yourself, be safe, and also take time for yourself. Self-care is very important as a parent, and also make sure your kids take self-care time also. Thanks very much. We'll see you soon. Be well, everybody.